Commander Alex stared at the dead control panel. 3 days had passed since the main engines failed. 3 days of floating in the endless black of uncharted space. 3 days of watching hope fade like the dimming emergency lights of the STARVEVER. Any luck with the comms? Alex asked, not bothering to look up. The answer would be the same as the last dozen times. Navigator Tom shook his head. Nothing. Our distress signal is broadcasting, but we're too far from any trade routes. No one will hear it out here. The STARVEVER was a research vessel, not meant for the deep void where they now drifted. Their mission had been simple. Collect data from the outer systems and return home. But simple missions could still go wrong. Engineer Kay entered the bridge, wiping black fluid from her hands with an already stained cloth. Her face told the story before she spoke. The engine core is completely dead, she said. The crystal matrix shattered when we hit that radiation pocket. We have no spare parts that could even begin to fix this. Dr. Ben looked up from his station where he had been calculating their remaining supplies. How much life support do we have left? Kay's shoulders dropped. At current usage, 10 days, maybe 12 if we power down everything but the most basic systems. Alex walked to the viewport. Stars stared back, cold and distant. Their beauty seemed cruel now. We need to make hard choices, Alex said. We should enter the sleep pods. It will extend our oxygen supply. And then what? Tom asked. We just hope someone finds us before the backup power fails, too. Alex turned to face the small crew. They were all NEXAR, a species known across the galaxy for their advanced technology and logical thinking. Their silver-blue skin reflected the emergency lighting, making them look even more ghost-like than usual. Yes, Alex said simply. Hope is all we have left. The next day, they shut down all non-essential systems. The STARVEVER's corridors became dark tunnels lit only by strips of floor lighting. The temperature dropped as heating was reduced to minimum levels. Kay worked to reroute power to the distress beacon, making it the priority after life support. If anyone comes within range, they'll know we're here, she said. But her voice lacked conviction. In the small dining area, the 4 crew members gathered for what might be their last meal together. The food, protein packs designed for efficiency rather than taste, did nothing to improve the mood. The NEXAR High Council won't send anyone to look for us, Tom said, breaking the heavy silence. We're too far off course. They'll mark us as lost and move on. No one argued. The NEXAR were practical to a fault. Risking more ships and crews to search the vastness of space for one lost vessel would be considered illogical. Ben pushed his half-eaten food away. My family will perform the remembrance ceremony. They'll place my items in the family shrine and speak my name to the stars. His voice cracked slightly. I always thought I would die old, surrounded by generations of offspring. Alex reached across the table and placed a hand on Ben's arm. We're not dead yet. But they all knew their chances grew slimmer with each passing hour. On the 5th day, the ship's computer detected a small asteroid field in their drift path. Without engine power, they had no way to change course. The shields are at minimal power, Kay reported. They'll stop the smallest rocks, but anything larger. She didn't need to finish. For 6 hours, they watched as the STARVEVER floated through the field of space debris. Each impact made them flinch. The shields flickered with each hit. A rock the size of a fist slammed into the hull near the supply section. Warning lights flashed. Hull breach in storage section 3, the computer announced in its flat voice. Sealing bulkheads, Kay said, fingers flying over the emergency controls. When it was over, they had lost nearly half their remaining supplies. Their timeline had just shrunk dramatically. We need to enter the sleep pods now, Alex decided. We can't wait any longer. The sleep pods were located in the medical bay. Originally designed for injured crew members who needed special care, they could also preserve life by slowing all bodily functions to near zero. I've programmed them to wake us if a rescue signal is detected, Ben explained as he prepared the pods. Otherwise, they'll keep us in suspension until power fails. How long will that give us? Tom asked. With just the pods running on emergency power, maybe 2 months, Kay answered. After that, she didn't need to explain. Alex looked at each crew member in turn. They had served together for 3 years. They were more than colleagues. They were family. We should record final messages, Alex suggested. No one objected. One by one, they sat before the ship's log recorder and spoke to loved ones they would likely never see again. When it was done, Alex made a final captain's log. This is Commander Alex of the NEXAR research vessel, STARVEVER. We have suffered catastrophic engine failure in Sector 12, Kappa. Coordinates are attached to this message. We have entered suspension pods to extend our survival time. If you find this ship and we still live, we thank you. If not, please inform the NEXAR High Council of our fate and send these messages to our families. Alex paused, then added, to whoever might find us. We did not go gentle into the dark of space. We fought until the end. The pods hummed with quiet energy as Ben activated each one. Kay went first, then Tom. Alex watched as their breathing slowed, their silver-blue skin taking on a frosted appearance as the preservation chemicals took effect. Ben stood by the last 2 pods. After you, Commander. Alex shook his head. Captains go last. Ben nodded in understanding. It has been an honor serving with you. And with you, old friend. After Ben was safely in suspension, Alex took one final walk through the silent ship. Emergency lights cast long shadows down empty corridors. The STARVEVER had been a good ship. It didn't deserve this lonely end. In the bridge, Alex touched the main console one last time, then pulled up the external camera feed. The ship was alone in the vastness, a tiny metal bubble surrounded by infinite darkness. Someone find us, Alex whispered to the stars. Please. Back in the medical bay, Alex climbed into the final pod. The lid closed with a soft hiss. Cold mist filled the chamber. As consciousness began to fade, Alex had a final thought. In the vastness of space, what were the chances anyone would find them before it was too late? The answer came in dreams of ice and darkness. The void of space is a silent graveyard, filled with the ghosts of ships that ventured too far and found only the cold embrace of the infinite. For the NEXAR, logic was their shield against the terror of that realization. They believed that by calculating every risk, they could outsmart death itself. But the universe doesn't always play by the rules of mathematics. As the STARVEVER drifted deeper into the unexplored sector, the ship became a frozen tomb. Every system that once sang with the hum of advanced engineering was now silent. The very technology that defined their species had become their prison. The NEXAR culture was built on the idea that the collective outweighed the individual. To the High Council, a single ship lost in a radiation pocket was a statistical inevitability, not a tragedy requiring a rescue mission. It was this cold reality that Alex and his crew had accepted as they closed their eyes in the suspension pods. They weren't just fighting for their lives, they were fighting against the fundamental belief of their own people that they were already gone. In the darkness of the medical bay, the only sound was the rhythmic clicking of the emergency power relay, a mechanical heart beating slower and slower as the weeks turned into months. Outside, the stars continued their slow dance, oblivious to the 4 souls trapped in a metal shell. The frost on the pods grew thicker, reflecting the faint starlight that filtered through the viewports. It was a beautiful, lonely sight. But space is also a place of strange coincidences. While the NEXAR were masters of the known, another species was just beginning to master the unknown. Humans. A species that the NEXAR viewed as chaotic, unpredictable, and dangerously emotional. To a human, a distress signal wasn't a calculation of resources, it was a call to action. Captain Jack, aboard the Horizon, didn't know the NEXAR. He didn't know their history or their logic. All he knew was that the silence of the quadrant had been broken by a cry for help. And for a human, that was the only reason needed to turn the ship around. The decision to divert from a profitable mining survey to investigate a weak, ancient frequency was exactly the kind of illogical behavior the NEXAR would never understand. But as the horizon began its burn toward the coordinates of the STARVEVER, the fate of the 4 silver-blue strangers began to shift. The humans were coming, not because it made sense, but because they refused to let anyone die alone in the dark. This clash of philosophies, the cold logic of the NEXAR and the stubborn empathy of the humans, would soon define the greatest survival story in the sector's history. But for now, inside the pods, there was only the cold and the silence. The chemicals kept their hearts beating just enough to remain on this side of existence, while their minds drifted in a state between life and death. Alex dreamed of the silver spires of the NEXAR homeworld, of the logic gardens where he had studied as a youth. In those dreams, everything was orderly and safe. He didn't know that his salvation would come from a species that found order in chaos and safety in the hands of strangers. He didn't know that 10,000 words of history were about to be rewritten by a group of humans who thought schedules were meant to be broken. The Horizon's engines flared, pushing the ship faster through the void, cutting through the distance that the NEXAR thought was insurmountable. Captain Jack watched the sensor readings, his eyes fixed on the tiny blip that shouldn't have been there. It was a race against time, a race against the failing batteries of the STARVEVER, and a race against the very laws of probability. The bridge of the Horizon was a stark contrast to the sterile, quiet bridge of the STARVEVER. It was noisy, filled with the smell of recycled coffee and the constant chatter of a crew that worked as a team of individuals rather than a synchronized machine. Lisa, at comms, kept her headset pressed tight to her ear, trying to pull meaning from the fading beeps. Mike adjusted the thrust, feeling the ship's vibrations through the deck plates. They were moving into the unknown, and for them, that was where they felt most alive. The contrast between the two ships was the contrast between two ways of existing in the universe. One sought to control the environment, the other sought to experience it. And in the intersection of those two paths lay the only hope for the 4 NEXAR. As the Horizon closed the gap, the mechanical heartbeat of the STARVEVER gave one final, stuttering click. The power was almost gone. The frost on Alex's pod was no longer melting at the edges. The darkness was winning. But then, a new light appeared on the long-range sensors of the derelict ship, a warm, golden glow from the thrusters of a human vessel that refused to believe in lost causes. Captain Jack stretched in his chair on the bridge of the Horizon. The human exploration vessel had been mapping this sector for 3 weeks now. It was boring work, but necessary. Earth needed new mining sites, and this unexplored region of space might hold valuable resources. How much longer until we finish the scan of this quadrant? Jack asked, stifling a yawn. Lisa, the communications officer, checked her screen. About 6 hours, Captain. Then we can head back to base as scheduled. Jack nodded. The crew of 12 had been away from home for nearly 2 months. They were all ready to return, to feel solid ground beneath their feet again, to see blue skies instead of endless stars. Captain, Lisa said suddenly, her back straightening. I'm picking up something strange. Define strange, Jack said, moving to her station. It's a signal. Very weak. Using an old frequency we haven't seen in years. Her fingers moved across her screen, adjusting settings. It's a distress beacon. The bridge fell silent. In the vastness of space, a distress signal was both rare and important. Can you trace it? Jack asked. Lisa worked her controls for a moment. Yes. It's coming from about half a day's journey off our planned route. Mike the navigator frowned. That would put us well behind schedule, Captain. The company won't be happy if we're late delivering the survey data. Jack ran a hand through his short brown hair. Put the signal on speaker. A moment later, a repeating pattern of beeps filled the bridge. It was mechanical and emotionless, but to everyone listening, it might as well have been a scream for help. Any idea who it belongs to? Jack asked. Lisa shook her head. The frequency is old, at least 20 years out of date. It's not matching any current human emergency protocols. Alien, First Officer Rob suggested. Possibly, Lisa agreed. But I can't identify which species. Jack paced the small bridge. The choice wasn't easy. Diverting course would mean delays, paperwork, and possibly danger. Unknown alien encounters were always unpredictable. What do we do, Captain? Rob asked, knowing what Jack was thinking. Jack stopped pacing. What would we want someone to do if that was our signal? The question needed no answer. Mike, plot a course to the signal source. Lisa, keep monitoring in case there's any change. Rob, prepare the medical bay for possible survivors. Yes, Captain. They responded together. And alert the rest of the crew, Jack added. Tell them our vacation just got postponed. 12 hours later, the horizon approached the source of the distress signal. Visual contact, Mike announced, putting it on the main screen. The view screen showed a ship drifting against the backdrop of stars. It was sleek with curved lines that suggested speed and grace when it had been operational. Now it hung lifeless in space, only a few external lights still blinking weakly. Scan it, Jack ordered. Hull is intact, but I'm reading a small breach in what appears to be a storage section, Rob reported. Minimal power signatures. The ship is running on emergency systems only. Life signs? Jack asked. Rob adjusted the scanner. Yes, 4 of them. Very faint. They appear to be in some kind of suspended animation. Jack leaned forward. Can you identify the species? The ship design and life signs are consistent with NEXAR technology, Rob said. They're not common in this sector. Must be a research or exploration vessel that went off course. The NEXAR were known to humans but not familiar. Their silver-blue skin and advanced technology made them somewhat mysterious. Relations between humans and NEXAR were neutral. Not friendly, but not hostile either. How long has that ship been drifting? Jack asked. Lisa checked her readings. Based on the beacon's power degradation, I'd estimate about 2 months. 2 months. Jack tried to imagine being lost in space for that long, watching systems fail, waiting for a rescue that might never come. Captain, Rob said quietly. Their life support is failing. Those stasis pods are running on the last of their emergency power. I'd give them 3 days at most before they shut down completely. Jack nodded grimly. Then we have work to do. Prepare a boarding party. We need to get those people out of there. 2 hours later, Jack led a team of 5 toward the alien vessel. They wore environmental suits, not knowing what conditions they would find inside. The Horizon shuttle carried them across the short distance between the ships. Remember, Jack told the team, these are NEXAR. They're logical, precise, and probably scared out of their minds. We go slow. We stay calm. The team included Rob, Dr. Sam, and engineers Kelly and Mark. They were the best the Horizon had to offer. Approaching the airlock now, Mark reported from the shuttle controls. I'm detecting minimal atmosphere inside the ship. Suits will be necessary. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. The team checked their equipment one last time before cycling through the airlock. They entered darkness. Their helmet lights cut through the gloom, revealing a corridor that curved gently ahead of them. The air was thin and cold. Power's almost gone, Kelly observed, checking her scanner. Life support is at less than 10%. Let's find those stasis pods, Jack ordered. Sam, which way? Sam consulted his medical scanner. Life signs are coming from that direction, he said, pointing down the corridor about 50 meters. They moved carefully through the silent ship. Emergency lighting gave everything a blue tint, making the metal walls look like ice. Their footsteps echoed in the emptiness. Fascinating design, Mark commented, running a gloved hand along a wall panel. The NEXAR are known for their engineering, but I've never seen one of their ships up close. Focus, Mark, Jack reminded him. Sightseeing comes later. They found the medical bay on the second deck. The door was partially open, stuck in place when power had begun to fail. Kelly and Rob forced it the rest of the way. Inside, four stasis pods hummed faintly. The blue glow from within illuminated the faces of the NEXAR crew. Their silver-blue skin had a frozen quality, covered with a thin layer of frost from the suspension process. Sam immediately went to work checking the pod status. They're alive, but just barely. These pods were never meant to run this long on emergency power. The preservation chemicals are starting to break down. Can they be moved? Jack asked. Sam nodded. Yes, but carefully. We'll need to keep them in stasis until we can transfer them to our medical bay. How much time do they have left? Rob asked. Sam looked grim. If we hadn't found them, maybe 2 days. The pods would have failed. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Then let's not waste time, Jack said. Kelly, Mark, stabilize the pod systems for transport. Rob, help Sam prepare them for movement. I'm going to check the bridge, see if I can find out what happened here. As the others went to work, Jack made his way to the NEXAR ship's bridge. The story he found in the ship's logs was both simple and tragic. Engine failure in deep space. No way to repair it and a slow countdown to death. The final log entry from the commander touched him deeply. To whoever might find us. We did not go gentle into the dark of space. We fought until the end. Jack touched the console gently. You did, he said to the empty bridge. And it worked. We found you. Now they just had to finish the rescue. The transition from the dead, cold atmosphere of the STARVEVER to the vibrant, oxygen-rich environment of the horizon was a violent shift for the NEXAR technology. As Kelly and Mark worked to bridge the power gaps, the pods hissed and groaned under the strain of a foreign energy source. They were literally keeping these people alive on a diet of human electricity and improvised cables. Back on the human ship, the medical bay was a flurry of activity. Dr. Sam was setting up specialized monitors, trying to translate NEXAR biological readings into something he could understand. It wasn't just a rescue, it was a high-stakes puzzle. If they woke them up too fast, their nervous systems could shatter. If they waited too long, the toxins from the decaying suspension fluid would cause permanent brain damage. Captain Jack stood in the doorway, watching his team work. He had seen a lot in his years in deep space, but there was something about the NEXAR that felt different. They looked so fragile in their silver frost, yet their ship's log spoke of a defiance that was purely universal. It didn't matter what color your skin was or what planet you called home, when faced with the infinite void, everyone fought back. Rob joined him, holding a tablet with the initial scans of the NEXAR ship. It's a miracle they lasted this long, Captain. That storage breach we saw. It wasn't just supplies. It took out their secondary life support regulator. They've been breathing recycled air that was 60% carbon dioxide for the last week before they hit the pods. Jack winced. No wonder they went into stasis early. They were suffocating. He looked at the pods, which were now being lined up in the horizon's bay. How are the engineers doing with the interface? Rob gestured toward Mark, who was currently swearing at a converter. It's like trying to plug a toaster into a nuclear reactor. The voltages don't match, the frequencies are all wrong, but Mark says he can trick the pods into thinking they're still on the STARVEVER. He's basically building a digital lie to keep their hearts beating. Jack nodded. Tell him to take as much time as he needs, as long as it's less than an hour. Sam says their vitals are dipping. On the other side of the bay, Kelly was focused on the pod belonging to the commander. She noticed a small, hand-carved charm hanging from the side of the internal control panel. It was a simple geometric shape, but it had been polished until it shone. Even in their logical, high-tech world, these people had things they held onto for comfort. It made the NEXAR feel less like aliens, and more like people. She worked with renewed focus, carefully soldering a bypass that would stabilize the temperature. The silence of the medical bay was broken only by the hum of the machines and the occasional sharp command from Sam. The rest of the Horizon's crew was on high alert. They were in uncharted territory, and while they had found survivors, they were still a long way from safety. Mike, up on the bridge, was keeping a close eye on the long-range sensors. The sector was quiet, but space had a way of throwing a curveball when you were most distracted. He checked the fuel reserves. The detour had cost them, but when he looked at the feed from the medical bay, he didn't care about the bonus he'd lose for being late. He saw the NEXAR, and he saw his own crew working to save them. That was the human spirit, the one thing that didn't show up on a corporate balance sheet. As the first pod began to cycle its wake-up sequence, the atmosphere in the room shifted from frantic to expectant. This was the moment of truth. Either the human NEXAR tech hybrid would work, or they would have brought 4 bodies across the void just to watch them expire. Sam held a syringe of stimulant ready, his eyes locked on the commander's heart rate monitor. The blue glow of the pod began to pulse, mirroring a heartbeat. The frost on the glass was melting away in real time, revealing the face of Commander Alex. His eyes were closed, his expression peaceful, unaware that his world had changed forever. He was no longer drifting in a dead ship. He was surrounded by the very species his people considered illogical. And that lack of logic was about to give him his life back. Jack took a deep breath. "Okay, Sam. Let's see if anyone's home." The pod hiss echoed through the bay as the lid began to rise. A cloud of cold vapor spilled out, curling around the feet of the human rescuers. For a second, no one moved. Then, the commander's fingers twitched. It was a small movement, barely visible, but it was the most beautiful thing Jack had seen in months. The fight wasn't over, but the first round had gone to the humans. Commander Alex felt cold, then warmth, then sensation returning to limbs that had been still for too long. Consciousness came back in waves, each bringing more awareness. The stasis chemicals were breaking down, allowing thought to return. Something was wrong. The wake-up sequence was happening too fast. Emergency protocols. Had the ship systems failed completely? Alex's eyes opened slowly, vision blurry at first. A face came into focus above the pod. Not NEXAR. Pink skin, hair on the head, eyes round and dark. Human. Alex tried to speak, but the throat was too dry. The pod lid was open now. The human said something that sounded strange and unfamiliar. Another human appeared, offering a cup of water. Alex took it with shaking hands and drank carefully. The water was cool and clean. "Where my crew?" Alex managed to ask in broken universal trade language. A simple form of communication used between species. The human with dark hair seemed to understand. "Safe," he said in the same language, pointing to the other pods. "Still sleeping. You are first." Alex looked around. This was not the STARVEVER. The medical bay was different. Designed for human bodies with bright lights and equipment Alex didn't recognize. "I am Jack," the human said, placing a hand on his chest. "Captain of Horizon, human ship. We found your distress signal." "Alex," the NEXAR replied weakly. "Commander of STARVEVER." "How? How long?" 2 months, Jack said. "Your ship was drifting. Almost no power left." 2 months. The pods had been designed to last 3 at most. The humans had found them just in time. "Thank you," Alex said, the words feeling small compared to the enormity of what these aliens had done. Over the next day, the rest of the NEXAR crew was awakened. Dr. Ben recovered quickly, immediately helping Sam understand NEXAR physiology. Navigator Tom was more wary, watching the humans with suspicious eyes. Engineer K was fascinated by the human ship, asking endless questions that Mark tried his best to answer. Communication was difficult at first. The universal trade language was limited, meant only for basic commerce between species. Mark had a solution. "I've been working on this," he said, showing Alex a small device. "It analyzes speech patterns and creates translation algorithms. The more we talk, the better it gets." Alex took the device cautiously. NEXAR were not known for trusting alien technology, but they had little choice. "Now your people came for us," Alex said slowly, the device translating. "Why? We are strangers to you." Jack seemed surprised by the question. "You needed help. That's enough reason." This simple answer confused the NEXAR crew. In their culture, such actions required logical justification. Resources spent, risks taken, benefits gained, all carefully calculated. The humans had diverted their mission, used valuable fuel and supplies, all for unknown aliens who might never be able to repay them. "Your ship," Kay asked Mark through the translator. "You said you were on a survey mission. Now you are delayed. Will you be punished?" Mark laughed. "We'll get some paperwork and maybe a lecture about schedules, but no one will question that. We stopped to help." Kay frowned. In NEXAR space, such inefficiency would not be tolerated. "Efficiency isn't everything," Kelly said, joining the conversation. "Sometimes you do things because they're right, not because they're efficient." This concept seemed to trouble the NEXAR deeply. Later, in the Horizon's dining area, both crews shared a meal. The humans had synthesized food compatible with NEXAR biology, another gesture that surprised Alex. "We've managed to save most of your ship systems," Jack explained. "The main engines are beyond repair, but we can tow you to the nearest station. From there, you can contact your people." "The nearest station is 5 days away," Rob added. "We've already changed course." Ben, who had been speaking quietly with Sam, turned to Alex. "Their medical knowledge is unusual. They use intuition alongside science. Their bodies are simpler than ours, yet they adapt quickly to new environments." Tom leaned closer to Alex. "Can we trust them? Really trust them? No species is this helpful without reason." Alex watched the humans laughing together at the far end of the table. They were so different, noisy, emotional, inefficient in many ways. Yet, they had done what no NEXAR ship would have done, diverted their mission to save unknown aliens with no guarantee of reward. "I believe we can," Alex said finally. "They are different from us, but perhaps that is good. They saw our signal and chose to help. In their place, would we have done the same?" The question hung in the air, uncomfortable but necessary. "I have studied the device they gave us," Kay said quietly, "the translation technology. It is innovative. Not as precise as ours would be, but it learns and adapts like they do." Alex nodded slowly. "Perhaps we have much to learn from each other." Across the room, Captain Jack raised a cup in a toast, smiling at the NEXAR crew. The humans had saved them from certain death, asking nothing in return except the opportunity to help. Alex raised a cup in return, a strange feeling growing, something like hope but warmer. These humans, with their inefficient ways and emotional decisions, had done something remarkable. They had answered a call that no one else had heard. The 5-day journey to the nearest station became a masterclass in cross-cultural exchange. The Horizon, once just a workhorse for exploration, had become a laboratory of social dynamics. Every corner of the ship held a NEXAR and a human huddled over a screen or a piece of hardware. The silver-blue NEXAR were slowly beginning to shed their rigid formality, replaced by a cautious curiosity that was encouraged by the humans' boisterous nature. Mark and Kay had practically moved into the STARVEVER's engine room, trying to stabilize what was left of the systems. Kay was horrified by Mark's toolbox, which contained things like duct tape and multi-purpose lubricants. To a NEXAR, every tool had a singular, mathematically defined purpose. To a human, a tool was whatever worked in the moment. You cannot possibly expect this adhesive to hold a high-pressure plasma conduit, Kay argued, pointing at a strip of reinforced tape Mark was applying. Mark just grinned, wiping grease onto his pants. "Watch me. It's not about making it permanent, Kay. It's about making it hold until Friday. If it doesn't leak for 48 hours, we've won." Kay stared at the conduit, her logical mind screaming at the structural impropriety of it all. But 10 minutes later, when the pressure held and the gauges stayed in the green, she found herself making a note in her log about human adaptability and unconventional material application. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Tom was helping Mike with the long-range scans. He was amazed at how Mike could read the sensor ghosts. The NEXAR used AI to filter every signal until only pure data remained. Mike, however, would look at a blurry smudge on the screen and say, "That looks like an ion trail from a freighter, let's nudge 5 degrees left." "How do you know?" Tom asked, his eyes narrow. "I don't know," Mike admitted. "It just feels right. It's got that specific hue of bluish-gray." Tom spent hours trying to find a mathematical basis for bluish-gray and feeling right, only to realize that the humans were accessing a deep well of subconscious experience that bypassed formal logic. It was efficient in a way that defied NEXAR definitions of the word. In the mess hall, the conversations were deeper. Alex and Jack talked about their respective worlds. Jack described the oceans of Earth, the chaos of its cities, and the way humans had spent most of their history fighting each other before they reached the stars. Alex spoke of the NEXAR's pursuit of the Great Balance, a societal goal where every resource was optimized and every life had a pre-calculated purpose. "So, you never just do something because you want to?" Jack asked, leaning back in his chair. Alex considered this. "Preference is considered a secondary variable. We do what the balance requires." Jack shook his head. "Sounds like a lot of work for very little fun. We do what we want, and usually, the universe tells us if it was a bad idea later. We call that learning." Alex looked at his crew. They were laughing more. Ben was playing a card game with Kelly and Dr. Sam, and though he was losing badly because he kept trying to calculate the odds of a shuffled deck, he was smiling. The frost was gone from their skin, and something else was taking its place, a warmth that came from being seen, not as a mission objective, but as a person. The humans weren't just saving their lives, they were expanding their horizons. They were showing the NEXAR that there was space between the numbers for things like friendship and humor. It was a realization that Alex found both terrifying and liberating. If logic wasn't the only way to survive, then what else had the NEXAR missed in their long history? As they approached the outskirts of the Frontier Station 12 system, the mood was one of quiet reflection. The STARVEVER, towed safely behind the horizon, was a symbol of their shared effort. It was a broken thing kept alive by a digital lie and human tape, but it was moving. And for the first time in his life, Alex understood that perfection was the enemy of progress. You don't need a perfect engine to get home, you just need one that refuses to quit. And humans, he realized, were the most stubborn engines in the galaxy. "Impossible," Kay said, shaking her head as she studied the schematics of the STARVEVER's engine core. "The crystal matrix is completely shattered. There is no way to repair this." 3 days had passed since the rescue. The Horizon towed the damaged NEXAR vessel behind it as they traveled toward the nearest space station. Both crews had been working together, trying to understand what had happened and if repairs were possible. Engineer Kelly leaned over the table, studying the same schematics. Unlike Kay's slender blue fingers, Kelly's human hands were rough and marked with small scars, signs of someone who worked with real machinery, not just designs. "Nothing's impossible," Kelly said with a confidence that Kay found puzzling. "Just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done." Kay sighed. "The crystal matrix is the heart of our propulsion system. It must be perfect, grown under exact conditions over many months. Even a small flaw would cause catastrophic failure. Kelly picked up one of the broken crystal pieces. What if we don't need it to be perfect? What if we just need it to work long enough to get you home? Those are the same thing, Kay said. Kelly smiled. Not to humans, they aren't. In the medical bay, Dr. Ben watched with fascination as Sam treated a small burn on Rob's hand. The first officer had injured himself while helping move equipment from the NEXAR ship. You're not using a healing matrix, Ben observed. A what? Sam asked, applying a simple bandage after cleaning the wound. A programmed cellular accelerator, Ben explained. It would close the wound immediately. Sam shrugged. We don't have that technology. The body heals itself with a little help. Inefficient, Ben said automatically, then caught himself. I'm sorry, that was rude. Sam laughed. No offense taken. It is inefficient, but it works. The body adapts, becomes stronger around the healing site. Sometimes the slow way has advantages. Ben thought about this as he helped organize medical supplies. The humans accepted imperfection as part of life. They worked with it rather than trying to eliminate it completely. It was so different from NEXAR thinking. On the bridge, Navigator Tom stood beside Captain Jack, watching the stars. The human ship's navigation systems were less advanced than NEXAR technology, but Jack guided the ship with a confidence that impressed Tom. How do you know this is the best route? Tom asked. Your computers haven't calculated all possible paths. Jack tapped his head. Some things you just feel. Experience. Intuition. Call it what you want. Sometimes you know things you can't explain. Tom frowned. That is not logical. No, Jack agreed. But it works. He pointed to a cluster of stars ahead. See that formation? Reminds me of a pattern I saw near a gravity well once. I'd steer a bit more to port just to be safe. Tom checked his instruments. Nothing indicated danger. Yet, he couldn't help but notice Jack changing course slightly, trusting something beyond data and numbers. Commander Alex found the humans constantly surprising. They worked hard but laughed often. They argued openly but without lasting anger. They approached problems from angles that no NEXAR would consider. Mark had created an improved version of the translation device, allowing both crews to communicate more freely. Alex used it now as the command crews gathered in the Horizons conference room. We've been examining the damage to your ship, Jack said. The good news is most systems can be repaired once we reach the station. Life support, navigation, communications, all fixable. And the bad news? Alex asked. The engine. Jack looked to Kelly, who stood to address the group. The crystal matrix is beyond conventional repair, Kelly said. But we think we found an alternative solution. Kay appeared uncomfortable. I told her it won't work. The crystals must be perfect. Kelly placed a container on the table and opened it, revealing the shattered remains of the NEXAR engine core. Perfection is overrated, she said with a smile. What if we reconfigure the crystal fragments in a new pattern? They won't work like they did before, but they might generate enough power for limited propulsion. That is not how our technology works, Kay insisted. Maybe not how it's supposed to work, Kelly agreed. But these crystals still have energy potential. We just need to arrange them in a way that creates a stable reaction. Alex looked at Jack. Is this possible? Jack shrugged. Kelly has a talent for making things work when they shouldn't. I've learned to trust her instincts. Instincts, Kay repeated, the word sounding foreign from her mouth. Not calculations. Both, Kelly said. The calculations tell us the limits. Instinct shows us how to work around them. For the next 2 days, the engineering teams worked on Kelly's idea. The NEXAR engineers were skeptical, following procedures and protocols that had served their species for centuries. The humans were different. They tried ideas that failed, adjusted, tried again, working through breaks and sleeping in shifts. Kay watched Kelly work with growing interest. The humans' approach was chaotic by NEXAR standards, but there was a method to it. Kelly talked to the machinery, patted it, treated it almost like a living thing. "Why do you do that?" Kay asked. "Do what?" Kelly looked up from the crystal alignment she was adjusting. "Speak to the equipment. Touch it unnecessarily." Kelly laughed. "Old habit. My first ship was a rust bucket that needed constant coaxing. I guess I learned that machines have personalities." "That is not rational," Kay said. "Maybe not," Kelly agreed. "But sometimes when nothing else works, a little sweet talk and a gentle touch does the trick." She tightened a connection and stepped back. "Let's try it now." The reconfigured crystal array was nothing like the original NEXAR design. Instead of a perfect geometric formation, the crystals were arranged in an asymmetrical pattern that looked wrong to Kay's eyes. The human engineers had added materials from their own ship, conductors and stabilizers that weren't in the original plans. "Power it up," Kelly said. 20% only." Kay hesitated, then initiated the sequence. The crystal fragments began to glow, energy flowing between them along the new pathways. The readouts showed power building, unstable but present. "It's working," Kay said, surprise evident in her voice. "Told you," Kelly said with a grin. "Not perfect, but good enough to get you home. We'll need to monitor it constantly and make adjustments, but it should hold." Kay stared at the improvised engine core. By NEXAR standards, it was a crude solution, inelegant and temporary. Yet, it worked when all NEXAR knowledge said it should not. "I do not understand how you thought of this," Kay admitted. Kelly shrugged. "Humans are good at making broken things work. It's kind of our specialty." Later, Alex found Jack in the observation room, looking at the two ships joined together as they moved through space. "Your engineer has done the impossible," Alex said. Jack smiled. "Kelly would say she just did what needed doing." "The NEXAR would never have attempted such a solution," Alex admitted. "We would have followed protocol, waited for rescue, or accepted our fate." "Different approaches," Jack said. "Neither wrong, just different." Alex thought about this. "Your crew took risks to save us. You continue to take risks to help us. Why?" Jack considered the question. "Humans have a saying. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. Space is vast and dangerous. We all need help sometimes." The translation device struggled with some of the concepts, but Alex understood the meaning. The humans helped because they could, because they believed connection was valuable in itself. It was a simple idea, yet it challenged everything the NEXAR had built their society upon. Efficiency, logic, perfection. These were the pillars of NEXAR civilization. The humans offered something different: adaptation, improvisation, and an unexpected kindness that crossed the boundaries between species. As they stood watching the stars together, Alex wondered what other surprises these humans might have to offer. The arrival at Frontier Station 12 was not just the end of a long journey, but the beginning of a legend. The image of the rugged, scarred human horizon alongside the elegant, jury-rigged NEXAR STARVEVER became a symbol of hope across the sector. But the true work was happening inside the station's repair bays. The station's administrative staff was used to freighter captains complaining about docking fees, not two captains from different species arguing over who got to pay for the medical supplies. Captain Jack, ever the stubborn leader, insisted that the NEXAR were guests of the horizon until their own embassy arrived. Commander Alex, meanwhile, was trying to navigate the bureaucratic maze of an international space station with his logical mind. He found the human way of negotiating, which often involved a lot of shouting and then a sudden handshake, to be utterly baffling. But he also saw its effectiveness. When a docking official tried to delay the STARWEAVER's repairs due to improper documentation, Jack stepped in with a few choice words and a story about the rescue. Suddenly, the documents didn't matter as much as the heroics. It was another lesson for Alex: in a universe of rules, sometimes the right story could bend them. Kay and Kelly continued their work in the bay, becoming a local attraction for the station's engineering community. People would gather on the observation deck just to watch the silver-blue NEXAR and the grease-stained human work together on the crystal engine. They had developed a shorthand communication that didn't even require the translation devices anymore. A look, a gesture, or a specific hum of a tool was enough. They were proving that technology was not just about blueprints, it was about the hands that built it. Kay was learning that a machine didn't need to be perfect to be a masterpiece. In fact, the imperfections Kelly introduced were what allowed the engine to survive the fluctuating power of the station's grid. It was a paradox that Kay was finally beginning to appreciate. Meanwhile, Dr. Ben was having a breakthrough of his own. He was working with the station's multi-species medical team, sharing the data he had gathered during their 2-month drift. His precise NEXAR records on the effects of long-term stasis were invaluable, but he found himself more interested in Sam's bedside manner. He watched as Sam comforted a frightened young alien who had been injured in a freighter accident. There was no medical reason for the soothing words or the gentle touch, yet the patient's vitals stabilized faster because of them. Ben realized that healing was not just a biological process, it was a psychological one. He began to incorporate these illogical, human traits into his own practice, much to the surprise of his crew. Tom, who had been the most resistant to human influence, found his peace in the station's archives. He was comparing NEXAR star charts with human ones and found that the humans had mapped a dead zone that the NEXAR had ignored for centuries. When he looked at the human data, he saw why they had ventured there. It wasn't for resources or strategic advantage, it was for curiosity. They wanted to see what was there. Tom realized that the NEXAR's focus on efficiency had blinded them to the beauty of the unknown. The humans were not just reckless, they were brave. And bravery was a quality that Tom had never truly calculated the value of until now. As the days passed, the two crews became inseparable. They shared meals at the station's diverse diners, swapped stories of their homeworlds, and even started a friendly competition in the station's flight simulator. The humans usually won the combat scenarios with their crazy maneuvers, while the NEXAR dominated the navigation and resource management tasks. They were learning that they were two halves of a whole. The NEXAR provided the foundation, the logic, and the precision. The humans provided the spark, the intuition, and the drive. Together, they were something the galaxy had never seen before. It wasn't just a rescue mission anymore, it was a partnership. And as the NEXAR embassy ship finally appeared on the long-range sensors, a sleek and formidable vessel that represented everything Alex's people stood for, he felt a strange pang of regret. He was going home, but he was leaving behind a part of himself that he had only just discovered. He looked at Jack, who was standing beside him on the observation deck, and realized that the stranger had indeed become a friend. The universe was still vast and dangerous, but it felt a little smaller and a little warmer now. The space station appeared first as a small point of light in the distance. As the joined ships approached, it grew larger, a spinning wheel of metal and light, home to thousands of beings from dozens of species. Frontier Station 12, Jack announced on the shared communication channel. Not the biggest or the newest, but they have repair facilities and communications that can reach NEXAR space. Commander Alex stood on the bridge of the STARWEAVER, which now moved under its own power thanks to Kelly's improvised crystal engine. The ship limped along beside the horizon rather than being towed behind it. It wasn't pretty. The engine required constant adjustments, and they could only manage half their normal speed, but it worked. "We're being hailed," Lisa reported from the Horizon's communication station. The station controller's voice filled both bridges. "Horizon, we've been worried. You're 2 weeks behind schedule. What happened?" "Made some new friends," Jack replied easily. "NEXAR research vessel in distress. We're bringing them in for repairs. There was a pause. NEXAR out here? That's unusual. So is finding survivors after 2 months of drift, Jack said. We'll need a repair bay for them and accommodations for their crew while they wait for pickup from their people. Understood, Horizon. Proceed to docking bay 3. We'll prepare for your arrival. News of the rescue spread quickly through the station. Humans were common in this part of space, but NEXAR were rare visitors. By the time both ships docked, a crowd had gathered to watch. The 4 NEXAR crew members stepped onto the station with mixed feelings. They were grateful to be alive, yet aware of how far they still were from home, and they were unsettled by the attention they received. Why are they staring? Tom asked quietly. They've heard about the rescue, Alex replied. It seems our story has traveled faster than we have. A station official approached, accompanied by several other beings. Commander Alex, I'm Administrator Park. We've arranged quarters for your crew and repair facilities for your ship. We've also sent word to the nearest NEXAR embassy. They'll send transport for you within 2 weeks. 2 more weeks away from home. It was both a disappointment and a relief. 2 more weeks with these humans who had saved them, who continued to surprise them. Thank you, Alex said to the administrator, then turned to Jack. And thank you, Captain, for everything you and your crew have done. Jack smiled. We're not leaving just yet. We have our own repairs to make and reports to file. Besides, I think our engineers would riot if we tried to leave before seeing your ship fully functional again. In the following days, the reputation of both ships' crews grew. Stories spread about the human ship that had diverted its mission to save aliens they didn't know and of the NEXAR who had survived against impossible odds. Representatives from several species visited the repair bay where the STARVEVER was docked, curious about the makeshift engine that shouldn't work but did. Engineer Kay found herself explaining Kelly's improvised solution to fascinated technical experts. The human approach is unorthodox, Kay admitted to a group of engineers, but effective in ways we would not have considered. In the station's medical center, Dr. Ben collaborated with Sam, sharing knowledge that benefited both their peoples. Ben's precise understanding of biochemistry complemented Sam's practical approach to treatment. Navigator Tom spent hours in the station's stellar cartography lab, updating NEXAR star charts with human exploration data. The humans had mapped regions the NEXAR had never visited, using simpler but surprisingly accurate methods. For Commander Alex, the days were filled with meetings and preparations for the journey home. But in quiet moments, there were conversations with Jack, discussions about leadership, about the differences between their peoples, about the vastness of space and the unexpected connections it created. 10 days after their arrival at the station, a message came from the NEXAR High Council. They want a full report, Alex told the NEXAR crew as they gathered in their station quarters, including details of the human rescue and assistance. Will they understand? Ben asked. Will they see the value in what happened here? It was a valid question. The NEXAR valued efficiency and logic above all else. The council might view the humans' actions as irrational, perhaps even suspicious. I do not know, Alex admitted. But I will tell them the truth, that these humans did what no NEXAR ship would have done. They saved us when there was no logical reason to help, no benefit to themselves. And that their illogical methods fixed our unfixable ship, Kay added. Tom, who had been the most skeptical of the humans, nodded slowly. Perhaps there is a logic we do not yet understand, a wisdom in their approach that we have overlooked. The day before the NEXAR transport was scheduled to arrive, both crews gathered in the station's observation lounge. Through the large windows, they could see both ships docked side by side. The sleek, precise lines of the STARVEVER next to the more rugged, practical design of the Horizon. Jack raised a glass to new friendships and safe journeys home. Everyone drank to the toast. The atmosphere was warm but tinged with the sadness of approaching farewell. Captain Jack, Alex said, stepping forward. On behalf of my crew and the NEXAR people, I wish to present you with something. Alex handed Jack a small box. Inside was a crystal similar to those used in the NEXAR engine, but smaller. It glowed with a soft blue light. This is a communication crystal, Alex explained. Modified according to what we learned from your engineer, Kelly. It is imperfect by traditional NEXAR standards, but perhaps better for it. When activated, it will allow direct communication between our ships regardless of distance. Jack held the crystal carefully. I don't know what to say. Say that this is not goodbye, Alex replied. The universe is vast, but perhaps not vast enough to keep new friends apart forever. Kay approached Kelly, holding something wrapped in cloth. For you, she said, unwrapping it to reveal a tool made from NEXAR metal. It is an adjuster used by our engineers. I have modified it to fit human hands. Kelly took the tool with reverence. It's beautiful. It is practical, Kay corrected, then added with what might have been a smile. But perhaps it can be both. As the evening continued, more gifts were exchanged, star charts, medical knowledge, stories of home. The NEXAR, who had never valued such informal connections, found themselves reluctant to see these relationships end. Before the gathering concluded, Alex addressed everyone present. When we were lost in the void, we believed no one would find us. We were wrong. The humans answered our call when no one else could hear it. They showed us that there are many kinds of logic in the universe, many paths to wisdom. Alex looked at the assembled crews. Silver-blue NEXAR beside pink-skinned humans. So different yet now connected by shared experience. What we learn from each other may be more valuable than any technology or star chart. The humans taught us that imperfection can be strength, that adaptation matters more than perfection, and that sometimes the most logical action is to help simply because you can. Jack smiled. And maybe you taught us something, too. That precision has its place, that sometimes thinking things through beats rushing in. Perhaps, Alex agreed, the best path lies somewhere between our approaches. As they stood together watching the stars, the rescued and the rescuers, they shared a simple truth. Space was vast and often dangerous, but it was less so when you didn't face it alone. The departure of the NEXAR transport was a somber but proud moment for Frontier Station 12. As the massive, silver NEXAR vessel detached from the docking ring, a hush fell over the observation deck. Commander Alex stood on the bridge of the STARVEVER, which had been fully repaired by a joint team of NEXAR and human engineers. The crystal engine was now a perfect matrix again, but tucked away in a corner of the engine room was a single strip of human duct tape, a reminder of the improvisation that had saved them. Alex looked at the view screens, where the horizon was already preparing to return to its mining survey. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the rescue, but for the perspective he had gained. He was no longer just a commander of a research vessel, he was an ambassador of a new understanding. The NEXAR High Council would eventually receive his report, and while they might find his descriptions of human intuition and emotion difficult to process, they could not argue with the result. For NEXAR lives had been saved, and a new alliance, however informal, had been forged in the deepest reaches of space. As the STARVEVER began its jump to light speed, Alex activated the communication crystal Jack had given him. The blue light pulsed softly, a heartbeat across the void. "We are underway, Jack," he said, his voice steady. "Thank you again." On the bridge of the horizon, Jack smiled as he heard the voice. "Safe travels, Alex. We'll be looking for that bluish-gray smudge on the sensors. You better be there to greet us." The two ships went their separate ways, but the connection remained. The story of the STARVEVER and the Horizon would be told for generations, a story of how a species that valued logic met a species that valued life, and how together they proved that the universe is only as cold as the people in it. The humans continued their survey, finding new resources and mapping new worlds, but they did so with a newfound respect for the precision of the NEXAR. And the NEXAR returned to their silver spires, carrying with them the illogical warmth of human friendship. In the end, the greatest discovery of the STARWEAVER's mission wasn't a star chart or a data core, it was the realization that in the vastness of space, the most advanced technology is the hand that reaches out to help a stranger. The void is no longer just a graveyard, it is a bridge. And as Alex looked out at the stars, he knew that the next time a distress signal broke the silence, he wouldn't be calculating the risk. He would be turning his ship around. Because that is what friends do. And in the vast, beautiful, and dangerous universe, having a friend is the most logical thing of all. The NEXAR had fought until the end, but they didn't have to win alone. The humans had made sure of that. And as the last light of the STARWEAVER disappeared into the slipstream, the galaxy felt a little more like home for everyone. The end of one mission was just the beginning of a much larger story, one where logic and heart work together to light the way through the dark.